So let's check our stuff. Page 127 with your homework, right? Right, I'm gonna write it down for just a quick second. And okay. Okay, here we go. We only had to do the odd numbers, so I'm just gonna shout out those answers. Okay, so here we go. Number 1 should have been 1/6. Number 3, 5/36. Number 5, 1/12. Number 7, 1/4. 1/4. Number 9, 2/7. Number 11, 1/2. Number 13, 2/3. Number 15, 3/5. Number 17, 1/3. And number 19, 7/33. Okay. Anybody make errors in that top section? How many?
1.
More than 1 or 2? All right, so are you able to see where you went wrong? What happened on your mistakes? Give me some feedback. You didn't simplify before you multiplied?
I did.
Oh.
I guess
You didn't simplify. Well, maybe what happened, and I don't know without looking at it, I'm just kind of guessing, okay? Maybe at the start of the problem, when you cross simplified diagonally, maybe you didn't choose the greatest factor that they had in common. So that kind of stuck you at the end with a fraction that still needed to be simplified. So maybe that could have been a part of the problem. But I will say there was a couple of here, well, I know for a fact there was one in here, that even though you simplified using the greatest common factor, you still had to simplify at the end. Which one? Number 11?
Yeah.
So see, sometimes that does still happen, so everybody has to really be aware of the answers that you get. You gotta like second, triple, quadruple check yourself that fraction is in simplest form. Okay, what?
my mom never put before, but remember I got a reply from. That's how I did 3 plus 4, which is 7, but I was
So multiplying.
I wrote 1/7. On number 11, I simplified wrong. For to simplify from 6 and 3, I made 6 and 3 and 3 and 1.
And when I grade quizzes and I grade tests, I see those silly errors all the time from people. I see people simplify things incorrectly. Some of us aren't doing things that they should be doing right now during class. And we are being recorded. So I would rather not have to call names out of individuals on a recording for people at home to hear. But I think you are aware that you should not be doing those things. Am I right? Yeah. And I don't have time to waste to stop class to have to take care of that discipline issue. So, but yeah, y'all do need to kind of be careful when you simplify, or even when you're working through the problems, that you don't have like these brain burps where you start adding stuff instead of multiplying. Or where all of a sudden you divide something wrong when you simplify. Okay, so because those things cost you points. And Thursday's test or quiz, whatever you want to call it, only has 12 questions on it. So I know a lot of you kind of are like, yay, only 12 because I can finish it fast. But if you are thinking the way math teachers think, only 12 questions means each one of them is worth about 8 points. Because 12 questions times 8 points is 96, and that's about 100. So each one of them are about 8 points. So one silly error on simplifying, or one silly error on adding something when you should have multiplied, could possibly cost you a whole letter grade. Because one mistake would be a 92. And a 92 is a B. Yeah?
Are you going to do half points? Because if we get a half,
I do give you that.
that means if you get 1.5.
Yeah.
Kids have the Chromebooks right now for the last year.
We do have them.
Can you all look and see who has number 10?
It's me.
You pull it out. Is there a little, like,
Yes, yes.
thank you, where is it?
We noticed it yesterday.
One of my little NTI students used that and called and said, I left that on there, and I remember it going in here, I didn't know what it was.
We located it, she located it yesterday, and we were like, just leave it in there, I don't know what it's for, so.
Okay, yeah, I'll get it back to you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Okay, all right, yes.
But I mean, like, if you miss one and I won't have one, then it'd only be like, that point.
So if you miss, like, if there's a problem and you only make one small mistake on it, like, for example, let's say Hallie, I haven't looked at her problem over there yet, but when she said she made an error on her problem, and her error was she didn't simplify, but she did everything else correct. So she only had one tiny little error in the whole problem. I wouldn't count the whole thing wrong. I would only take off half. But if each one's worth 8, if I take off half, instead of taking off 8, I'm gonna take off 4, because 4 is half of 8, right? So that would drop you to 7, keep you as an A. But if you had 2 of those mistakes, 2 of those situations where you simplified wrong, and I still take off half for each, together that totals 8 points, right? So even though I give you that partial credit, like you still need to know that those things are like chunking points away that you don't want to lose, okay? You want your grade to show me, your parents, yourself, what you're capable of, okay? And you don't want it to look like a paper that shows you're capable of making a lot of silly errors. Okay, so I just tell you these things to get you aware of it. If you are aware, then you're thinking, and if you're thinking, you probably won't make those mistakes. Yes, James?
Another reason for me to get good grades is because at the end of the year, Krispy Kreme will give you a free donut for every A on your report card.
Oh,
How do you know that?
I've done it.
I've done it.
So, that's a fun little perk.
Give me all
Okay, well, we can't get, again, we're starting to get off topic again, and that's gonna take away time that I don't have. So, if you're like James and you enjoy donuts and Krispy Kreme donuts, Krispy Kreme, it sounds like at the end of the school year, will reward every A that you receive with a free donut. So, if you show up with a report card of 10 A's, you're gonna get 10 free donuts, is that what they do? Come on, that's pretty awesome. If all it took was for you to get a donut to make you get an A, I would have brought donuts for every test. Okay. All right, just so you know. Maybe I'll tell Mr. Malone, he's always said he wants to bring donuts to the class, so maybe I'll tell him on the last test of the year, if everybody gets an A, then he will bring a dozen donuts. So, okay. All right, so let's move on. All right, so come on, refocus. We're still in your homework because you still had a couple of extra problems to do. You had to do problem number 21. So when you compared those two fractions or those answers of those problems, you should have ended up with a situation where it was less than, meaning the mouth is open towards like the second set of numbers. Okay, so like, you know, it should be the first set is less than the second set. Okay, number 23 should be equal. Those turned out dead even.
You can kind of tell because like, there's one half and one.
Yeah. And then the last one, 25, that's a greater than situation. So it should be open towards the first number. Okay? All right, that was your homework. So for the most part, outside of silly mistakes, did we do well?
Yes.
All right, so let's move into your notebook now. Okay, so you should already have these notes because we did this back when we were starting to kick off chapter 8. So if you can find these notes in your notebook somewhere, this was our formula for how to multiply mixed numbers. So I'll give you a sec to try to locate that stuff. Put that down. What's going on? Okay. Some of you might really remember how to do this because when we started learning how to do this, Some of you were very interested and you were into it and you were really paying attention. And so today you probably remember exactly how to solve this stuff. But in case you weren't, because some of you had kind of checked out a little bit and you were like, I'm over school, I don't want to pay attention anymore, I'm not going to do this. And now you've learned yesterday, hey, don't check out yet, we still got school left and we got to finish strong, right? So we have to take today to kind of relearn this, so, all right? So how do you multiply mixed numbers? Well, here's the thing that I know some of you are possibly thinking to do. So if you have a problem like such as this one right here, let's just check this for a second. I want you to be honest with me. How many of you, when you look at that problem, you are thinking that the thing you want to do first is just multiply the fractions, and then when you're done with that, come back and multiply the whole number? So there are some people in here who might be thinking that that's what they should do. Why would somebody think that that's the formula or that's what we should do? Hallie, why would they think that way?
Because whenever we were adding the fractions, we did that and then the subtracted or added.
Amazing. Come get yourself a piece of candy. Okay, perfect. Because when we added and subtracted fractions, that's what we did. We didn't even pay attention to the whole numbers. We just worked the fraction stuff first, and then we came back to the whole numbers at the end. So some people might be thinking that, well, just because it's multiplication, we don't do anything different. We'll just multiply the fractions first, and then when we're done with that, come back and multiply the whole number. So, but I'm here to tell you, if you try to do it that way, you will get the answer wrong song. Okay? It won't work. You have to use those 3 steps that I wrote up above on this slide right here to solve this stuff. Multiplication is not addition. Multiplication is not subtraction. So obviously, since they aren't the same thing, we're not going to work things the same way. Okay? So we have to do stuff slightly different. So as you can see on this little page right here, step 1 says to change the mixed number to an improper fraction. Well, we got to make sure that we remember how to do that. So if we look down here at our problem below, we notice that we have a mixed number that is 3 1/2. And that's where I kind of told you it's that backwards C. You start down here at the bottom and you cruise your way towards the top. And as you move along, you do some math along the way. So you would start with the 2. The 2 gets multiplied by the 3. And then that answer gets added to whatever is at the top. So 3 1/2 turns into 7/2. Is this all kind of coming back to you a little bit? Okay. So since you've already kind of been taught this, I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to just give you 6 mixed numbers. Now you haven't done this yet, so you're going to have to do this in your notes. So I'm going to write a mixed number on the board. I'm going to give you a total of 6 different problems. All you have to do for these problems are turn my mixed numbers into improper fractions using that backwards C thing, okay? So my first one is going to be 8 3/9. You're going to turn that into an improper fraction, okay? And then problem number 2. Okay.
Once we find out the imperfection, do we simplify it or do we just leave it at
No. Because if you simplify it, honey, it would turn right back into what that thing is, so, yeah. So all you're doing is turning the mixed number that you see there on the board into an improper fraction. And you do that by using the backward C. Work on trying to keep your notes a little more organized. So, like when we look at hers, notice how, like, you can see her steps, she can see her steps. And then I can see her practice problems here, and I can see number one and the problem, number two and the problem. Versus just having things kind of splashed all over the paper. Because honestly, dude, that would be confusing to me. So I'm sure it's confusing to you. So that's something that you need to kind of improve on as you get a little older, okay? All right, so I've got some people in here who are still trying to work through some of these, but because we are a little bit on a time crunch, we need to start kind of looking at this stuff and see what these answers are, okay? So problem number one. So not only am I gonna want Braden here to tell me the answer, I want him to tell me what he did to get the answer. So Braden, walk us through that problem and tell me what you did to get what you got. Go.
8 times 9, which is 72, and you add 3, which is 75. And then you put 75 over 9, and
So he got an answer of 75 over 9. And that's the answer that I like. Okay? 75 over 9 is what 8 3/9 turns into when you make it an improper fraction. So Olivia was saying when she got to 75 over 9, she was like, do you have to simplify that? If she simplified that, what would 75 over 9 turn into?
a mixed number.
And what mixed number would it turn into?
8 and 3/9.
It turned into 8 3/9.
I did it, and it would.
Yeah. So you wouldn't simplify it because it would go right back to where it started. I just want to make sure that you know how to take that thing and turn it into the stuff that I'm putting in green. All right, Rory, give me number 2. Tell me what you did. And so my final answer is? Beautiful. I don't know why this board is choosing to jump back and forth between the eraser and the marker. 46 over 6. Excellent, Rory. I love it. Number 3. Max, go for it. Beautiful. Thank you, Max. Good explanation. Who would this be difficult for? It's like looking like it's not hard for any of you. But what is the thing that you have to be able to do in order to do this stuff? What do you gotta know, Lily? You gotta know your multiplication facts. And so that's when you come into 5th grade, you should have your entire backpack full of all multiplication facts. Because if not, everything we do in this year is gonna be tough. All right. Number 4, Allie, do it. Tell me what you did.
For 2 and 2 8s, so I multiplied 8 and 2, and I got 16. And 16 plus 2 is 18. And so the 8 is the denominator, and 18 is our numerator.
Excellent, thank you. So we ended up with 18 over 8. Perfect. All right, Cassidy, take on number 5. Go. Beautiful, Cassidy. Y'all know this isn't like if we were to be doing chapter 8, this skill here is an entire lesson.
It is?
Yeah,
What?
and you all just learned it in 5 minutes, okay? Go ahead, Addison, do the last one for me.
So you do 9 times 7, which is 63, plus 1, which is 64. So 64 comes in the numerator, and 7 comes in the denominator.
Excellent, you guys get it, very good. So, you know how to turn mixed numbers into improper fractions. And you also know that if you do that, you don't have to simplify because it would go right back where it started, right? So when we look at our 3 steps, step 1 says to change that mixed number to an improper fraction. Does everybody in here know how to do that now? Yeah. So once you finish that step, then it says you just do what you did last night for homework, which is simplify before you multiply, and then multiply what's left and get your final answer, okay? So let's go back to this problem. Now that we know we wouldn't solve this thing the way that we would do addition and subtraction problems, but instead, we have to turn this stuff into improper fractions. Let's work this thing and see what we get. 3 3/8. Shane, you need to go to the bathroom. Are you okay? Okay. 3 3/8. So what's this thing gonna turn into when I make it an improper fraction? Somebody I haven't spoken to yet. Dominic, what's it gonna turn into?
The 2 plus the 4.
Nope, 3 3/8.
So 8 times 3 would equal 24, and then plus 3 would equal 27.
Okay, so this would turn into a 27 over 8. Okay, and let's move to this side. 4 2/4. So what would that thing turn into, Brody?
It would be 18 over 4.
It would be 18 over 4, okay? So that's step 1. Oh my goodness gracious. So that's step 1, right? Now we're on step 2. Sophia, what's step 2 say to do?
You have simplified before you
Okay.
multiply.
So let's see, Sophia, if we can simplify anything. What are you thinking?
18 and 8 can be simplified by 2.
Yeah, they share 2. All right, so let's slice these things out and let's make them smaller. What do we get when we do that?
You get 18 into a 4, and 18 turns into a 9.
Beautiful, okay?
And you can't do anything after that.
Yeah. And the
So
27.
27 and 4, so it have anything this year.
No, all right, so this looks like it's gonna be a doozy, right? Because now I'm on to step 3. Step 3 says to do what, Colin McCauley? What's it say to do?
Multiplying.
Yeah, now we gotta multiply. Okay, so when I see what's left, because that's what it says, multiply what's left, I've got a 27 and a 9 at the top. Ooh. 27 times 9, that's not something I can do in my head. So you might want to move over to the side for most of us and work that out to make sure that we know exactly what 27 times 9 is. What is it, Sophia?
It's 216.
No.
No, it is.
I'm gonna disagree. Emily?
243.
Yeah, it's 243. Okay, all right. And then what's my bottom gonna be, Emily? I'll stick with you. It is gonna be 16. Okay, now here's the thing, friends. I was just in 5F. We just looked at this problem in 5F, but unfortunately I didn't give them any help. I tried to challenge them to see who could solve this without my help. And everybody did amazing until they got here. And then all of a sudden, their brains locked up. Why? Why all of a sudden did they come to a screeching halt and not know what to do? Yes. Okay, so it's big, but are we supposed to just all of a sudden not know how to function our brain thinking just because we have a bigger number? No. What do you think, Max?
Because they forgot how to simplify an improper fraction.
I hope they didn't, but I think some of them did. I think you're right, yeah? And I think because it was such a big improper fraction, they really freaked out, yeah? Any other thoughts, yeah? Xander? It is improper, and how do you simplify an improper fraction, everybody? You divide. So guess what? What did they forget how to do? They forgot how to divide. And that's an issue. Because this entire year, you have been taught how to do lots of different math skills. Division is one of those things that you really were supposed to kind of come into 5th grade already sort of knowing how to do. And unfortunately, There was a large group of them in there that forgot.
Oh,
So in this particular problem, I don't feel like I can do this in my head. I'm an old lady and I wouldn't try to do this kind of a division problem in my head. So those of you who are like, I can do it in my head, I'm gonna say this is one of those problems, no you can't. You're gonna work it out. So you're gonna put the large number at the top inside the box, and you're going to put the 16 on the outside. And now you gotta prove to me that you didn't forget how to divide 2-digit numbers. This was way back when we learned, does McDonald's serve burgers daily? So who wants to do this? Hallie, take it on, go. Beautiful. That's the first thing that I love that she recognized, because that's where their boo-boo happened. They were trying to see how many 16s would fit into 243. They never should have been playing with that big of a number. They should have been trying to figure out if there's a 2-digit number on the outside, you start with 2 digits on the inside. 16 will go into 24 how many times? Huh? I wouldn't say 2. That would be too many. Just one. Because if I have 2 16s, how many is that gonna give me? That would give me 32, okay? So I'm gonna tell you, only one is gonna fit, so, all right? 1 times 16, everybody is 16. Now it's time to subtract. 24 minus 16. Okay, this is where you can't make those baby math errors. You were taught how to subtract numbers like 24 and 16, I think in 1st or 2nd grade. So you should be recognizing that if you have more on the floor, you go next door. You gotta borrow. Oh, sweet Lord. This should have turned into a 1. This is gonna turn into an eraser in a minute, I just feel it. See, right there, I knew it. Okay. This turns into, whatever. This turns into a 14, okay? 14 minus 6 is 8. So if I subtracted 24 and 16, I should have had 8 left over, right? Then I'm supposed to bring down the next digit, which is a 3. So when I bring down that digit, I now have 83 at the bottom. Cassidy, how many 16s will fit into 83? 5 of them will. So that 5 goes on my root. Cassidy, what's 5 times 16? It is 80. So I'm going to bring my 80 down here. And when I subtract that stuff, I'm left with a whopping 3. And that 3 becomes my numerator. And my denominator stays the same. So my total and final answer after all of that hard work is 15 and 3 16. Now, just by a show of hands, how many in this room nailed it? Okay, do you know how proud that makes me? Because I just left that other room and I only had one person nail it. So, this makes me very proud, okay? I'm going to give you today no homework, okay? So, but I will tell you, if you want, because tomorrow, wait, don't move and group yet. Tomorrow, you will not have me for math, okay? So that's part of the reason why I'm not giving you any homework. But you do have your test for me, or your quiz, whatever you want to call it, on Thursday. And that quiz will contain problems like this. So if you feel like you want to kind of practice or maybe study a little bit, the place that you could use to practice stuff, I'm not making you do this page, but if you wanted to kind of use it as like a page to kind of get a little more prepared, you could use page, let me find it. You could use the page 141 and 142 of your workbook. Okay. That is a page that contains a bunch of mixed numbers that you multiply. Okay? So nobody has to do that for homework, but am I sort of giving a really good suggestion that maybe on Wednesday night, you use page 141 and 142 to practice some problems? Yes. You don't have to turn those in. Excuse me, guys in the back. You don't have to turn those in, but I do think that if I was trying to get ready for my final quiz of the year, I would want to make sure that I practiced everything so that I'm ready and set the day of the quiz. So who's my homework person? Would you just do me a favor? Just write up there, no homework, but just say, use page 141 and 142 for practice for the test. Workbook page 141 and 142 to practice for the test. Sure, in here, okay? All right, so let's head upstairs, we gotta get to library.